We are coming to the end of Fortnite Chapter 5, and the way I'm feeling right now, thank God, I am tired of all the drama and the controversy and just the constant yelling. I want to look forward to the future of Fortnite, and with everything that's going on right now, I think there is a lot of really awesome things to look forward to. However, I think by looking forward, we also need to reflect on the past a little bit. I think there are some features that have just been severely lacking from Fortnite for a long time. And as a matter of fact, I think there are 5 things in particular that Fortnite needs to bring back for Chapter 6, the last 2 of which are by far the most important. At the time of this recording, we are 2 days away from Fortnitemares, 3 weeks away from Fortnite OG, and about a month and a half away from getting into Fortnite Chapter 6. So I'm super excited at the thought of being able to go back to a different version of Fortnite and also moving to a newer version. But I'm hoping the newer version resembles more of Fortnite's core identity. One of the things I've been saying on the channel for the last few months is that Chapter 5 is a big departure from what Fortnite fans are used to. It was a huge shift from what we were experiencing in Fortnite OG. It was too different. And I think that that's why people were just so frustrated with this chapter, one of the many reasons why. I think and I hope that in Chapter 6, Epic is planning on returning to a more traditional form with Fortnite. And one of the signs that I think they're doing it ties into our number 5 slot, which is the first item on this list that I think they need to bring back, which is trap slots. Now, in Fortnite Chapter 5 Season 4, we did get trap slots back for the first time in what feels like over a year and a half, with the armored walls. This is probably one of the best decisions that Epic Games has made. I feel like that is such a fundamental part of this game. Like, it's such a core gameplay feature that was a part of Fortnite's identity that has been gone for so long. Trap slots add so much utility to the game, and I don't feel like they've been fully utilized to their maximum potential. I feel like there's a lot more that Epic could be doing with this gameplay mechanic that's just not being touched on yet. Trap slots should really be used to enhance a season's meta or to elevate gameplay in a very unique way. One of the examples I've given in particular has been Wrecked, saying how armored walls would have made that season so much more enjoyable for builds players. But also, what if we added turrets on top of that? What if we had turrets and armored walls? Like, even though you're in a stationary position, what if you have a weapon that can now do an insane amount of damage to a vehicle? It plays on the aspect of high risk, high reward. Also, I want Fortnite to start experimenting with new trap ideas. I can't remember the last time we've gotten a new trap item except, well, I guess maybe once again for the armored walls. Like, imagine an EMP trap in Wrecked that could have shut down cars completely, and then maybe it could have carried over into this season where if you throw it down and someone's close enough of a radius to you, it deactivates their jetpack. These are fun counters to items that seem overpowered in the meta, but they would also take skill in order to utilize them properly. And I'll be honest with you guys, I miss some of the old items that we used to have. Bounce pads, launch pads, even the spike traps, all those things just added a certain level of utility to Fortnite. And speaking of utility, let's talk about customizing your weapons. Coming into the number 4 spot, I honestly think that we need to have side grading return, but in a different way. One thing I did like about Chapter 5, even though it wasn't executed properly, is the idea of weapon attachments. Weapon attachments aren't a bad thing in Fortnite. It's just that currently they don't have that Fortnite twist, that little spin that Fortnite likes to put on different ideas. I think if we bring side grading back, it shouldn't just be about turning a SCAR into a AK. It should also incorporate weapon attachments. Let's give weapon attachments more utility. Maybe certain types of attachments turn one gun into a different type of gun. For example, maybe you can turn a pump shotgun into a tac shotgun. In a way, it would kind of be like the crafty system back from Chapter 2 Season 6 and 7. I've heard some people say they didn't like that system, but I actually enjoyed it. I like the idea of being able to find different parts on the Fortnite island, but using them to craft different weapons. One of the ways I think we can fix weapon attachments is by making them floor loot or chest loot. Make them feel a little bit more special to obtain in the match. I've heard a few people say the weapon attachments are too complex. As of right now, I don't really think that that's true. We don't have that many attachments in the game, but I also wouldn't mind them becoming even more complex than they are now. Adding a new layer of depth where I can find different attachments in the wild, but also knowing what those attachments do and how they can upgrade my weapons or transform my weapons into something else, I think would be really interesting. And using side grading benches or mod benches all around the map, not just in bunkers, would make it more fun to interact with that gameplay element. I also think it'd be interesting if you could find exotic attachments that could give you special abilities, like maybe being able to reload your gun faster, activating Siphon, just different things that are kind of like our number 3 slot, which, in my opinion, I think this one really needs to come back as well, which would be Augments. Now listen, I know a lot of you guys are going to be kind of salty right now. Some of you did not like the augment system. I totally understand. However, I think Augments left a bad taste in people's mouths for two main reasons. Number one, the only season where it felt really fun to use Augments was in Chapter 4, Season 1. Every season after that, although there were some good Augments littered in there, the vast majority of them were just really boring and pointless. They took concepts that we had in Chapter 4, Season 1 and just like added extra steps in order for you to be able to do the same things that you were able to do before. For example, Chapter 4, Season 1, we had Bush Warrior. You jump in a bush, you get health back, easy. Chapter 4, Season 3, well, you had to combine Mud Warrior with like some other augment to where like you have to be in mud, but then while you're in mud, you also have to be in a bush, and then that's how you get health. It was just too much. I think augments like trap slots are another thing that just haven't been able to maximize their full potential. Like there are so many cool augments you could bring to Fortnite to just spice up the gameplay a little bit. And I think the thing a lot of people need to realize is that augments, regardless of what you think about them, they really did spice up the gameplay loop. Like they diversified it to a new degree. They made it a little bit more complex, but not in an annoying way. The best example I can think of this is like back in Chapter 4, Season 1, when you had the exotic weapons that had certain abilities, and then you would have augments that would have certain abilities, and then you also had your heat level during the heisted update, which would give you like siphon back. Like it was just so much like mixing and matching of augments, the heat level, the different exotic weapons that you would use, and you were just customizing different combinations of things together to make an OP build in essence. Let's dial it back in for a second. What's the second reason that people really didn't like augments? Number one complaint that I always hear from people is they just didn't like how annoying they were when they kept popping up. And I can admit there were times when I would get annoyed by it or just wouldn't even activate the augments because every augment I got was just trash. So there were rounds that I would win in game without even activating my augments at all. I think the best way around this is to either give players the option to turn augments off or to maybe have augments only accessible in one part of the UI. Like maybe when you go to look at your inventory, that's where you can access all your augments and you can see which ones are available to you. Or maybe what you could do is you can only access your augments through the mod benches. So while you're upgrading or side grading your weapons, that's also where you would activate your different augments that you would get throughout the course of a match. Basically, augments would work like perks and you can only hold up to 4 per match along with whatever attachments you have for whatever weapon classes you decide to create. In my opinion, that would just add a whole new layer of depth to the gameplay. We're still keeping the integrity of what augments are, but we're keeping the annoying factor away. That way people aren't getting notifications every couple of minutes about, hey, you got a new augment popping up. Do you want to use it? Use your augment. Hurry up, use your augment. Your augment's here. Hey, activate your augment. Turn on the augment. We don't have to do that anymore. So before we get into the last two things that I think need to come back for Fortnite Chapter 6, I'm really curious as to how you feel about this list and also what things you want to see moving forward into the next chapter of Fortnite. This is your call to leave a comment down below. If you're one of the awesome people that made it this far, I appreciate you. Might as well go ahead and subscribe to the channel while you're here. We do content like this all the time. Commentary content is shifting on the channel. We're going to keep experimenting with it. I hope you guys like this style of video. I'm trying something new here. Never done a top 5 video. If this one does well, we might do another one. Anyway, back to the list. So as I said a minute ago, these last two things are the most important on this list, at least in my mind. I think that if Fortnite is going to set a proper tone for Chapter 6, if Fortnite is going to be consistent with its identity, if it wants to really get more players hooked back onto the game, to really emphasize what we came to this game for and what we love about it, these are the two things that are going to need to change, and they have been missing quite some time now. At our number 2 slot, I'm recommending that Fortnite bring back old POIs, or at the very least, remixed ones. Now hear me out because some people might disagree with this. One of the coolest things about Fortnite Chapter 5 was the introduction of Reload, and I think with this new mode, it allows us to recapture or re-experience some of the essence of what the old Fortnite seasons used to have. Reload is an excuse for Epic to add old POIs without having to bring them to the main BR. However, I do see the utility and the uniqueness of bringing back certain POIs into the main BR title. At its core, Fortnite's most popular game still is the main battle royale in builds and zero builds. And although Reload is an amazing side mode, I still think that some of that core identity or some of the old feels of the game should be brought back. Now, this is completely contradictory to how I felt last year. Back in Fortnite Chapter 4, I was hoping that we wouldn't get any old POIs and we would just have entirely brand new POIs for the entirety of the chapter. And that's exactly what we got. We had some things that were kind of inspired by old Fortnite POIs, but really at their core, they were all brand new. Same thing moving into Fortnite Chapter 5. However, this year, the issue was that artistically, just the POIs didn't feel like Fortnite, not as much as the old ones did. Not until we got to Fortnite Chapter 5 Season 4. I think that the 3 new POIs that we got for the Marvel collab really feel like Fortnite. And listen, I am also recording this for Fortnitemares. It's rumored that there's going to be 3 POIs that are going to be changed up, as well as 6 random locations on the map that are also going to get updated, so maybe we'll even feel more like Fortnite when that drops. If that ends up being the case with Fortnitemares, I think it's a good sign that Epic is listening, and they're kind of testing the waters for what they need to do in Chapter 6, at least fingers crossed. Now, when I say old POIs need to come back, I don't necessarily mean all the ones from Chapter 1. It can be an old POI from any season. There are a lot of really cool POIs that were exclusive to Chapter 2 and Chapter 3 that could be brought back. For example, in Chapter 2, I really liked Misty Meadows and Lazy Lake. Now, I know we're about to go into Chapter 2 OG, so maybe there's some storyline significance to why those POIs would get transferred over to the Chapter 6 island. But look, even if you don't bring those POIs over, there's plenty of other ones from Chapter 2 that you could mess with, like, for example, let me look here. That Sweaty Sands. Ooh, dude, I've totally forgot about Holly Hedges. That was a thing for a while. Wow, you know, I actually have not looked at the Chapter 2 map in so long. I am looking forward to going back to OG soon. I think we need to do a video on that next week, actually. Like, Chapter 2, honestly, the more I think about it, all the POIs are really solid. It's just that we got tired of the map. Anyway, dialing it back in here. Whether it's POIs from Chapter 2 or Chapter 3, we can bring some of those back into the Chapter 6 island. But if they don't want to bring back old POIs, why don't we just make some new ones that are in the spirit of older Fortnite? One thing I think Chapter 4 did well that I don't think enough people give it credit for is it was the perfect fusion of old and modern Fortnite. Like, it took a lot of old Fortnite elements, but fused it in a new and modern way, a new and modern look, and it just made the game overall gorgeous. I honestly think Chapter 4 had one of the most solid presentations out of any other chapter, and I know that might be a hot take to some of you, but we'll save that conversation for another video. Basically, what I'm getting at is if we're not going to get the old POIs back, there needs to be something to replace it that's in the spirit of older Fortnite or Fortnite's aesthetic. For example, Chapter 4 Season 1, Faulty Splits, hands down my favorite POI to land at. It was something simple, but the idea of just a bowling alley in a little city was just so cool to me. I loved landing there. The chest spawns were fun. Just the overall design of that POI was fun. When the Heisted update came out and they added the vault down there in the basement, that was cool. Just stuff like that. Like, I've always wanted a newer version of Tilted Towers. Like a Tilted Towers 2. I don't know what you would call it. You leave a name down in the comment section below for what we could call it. I think a new city, a big city POI, double the size of Tilted, not mega. I want these buildings to actually be traversable. I want you to be able to go inside of them. Just something that would feel like a Tilted Towers, but built in the modern day with all of Fortnite's assets and knowledge on what makes a good BR. But at the same time, it just maintains that Fortnite aesthetic that we all love that has been missing for all of Chapter 5. One of the biggest things this chapter pointed out to me was how important aesthetic and map design was. I think the map overall is good. Like, in terms of the flow of it, the overall design of it, it's good for both builds and zero builds. However, just aesthetically, the different POIs, not many of them feel like Fortnite to me. And the more time I spent on them, just the more drab it became. Like, I think even in the Greek God season, it got better. But the issue was the POIs got boring to land at. Like, no one's landing Mount Olympus anymore. Some people land at the Underworld because the water has utility, like the Skull Water. That's fine. Brawler's Battleground is okay. Like, the POIs aren't the worst, but just from an aesthetic standpoint, they don't feel the most interesting. But for some of the ones that got carried over from Season 1, or just the ones from Wrecked, or even just some of the other ones that we've gotten over the course of this chapter, they just don't hit that Fortnite aesthetic the right way. I see what Epic Games was doing, and they were cool, but I can't tell you the last time I've landed at something like the Rig. You know what it is? I just realized it. The issue with a lot of the new POIs is that after their season theme is over with, like once we carry over into the next season, there's really no point in landing at them because those POIs, their utility came from their boss being there. But themselves, just as like good POIs, just not that much fun. Without the bosses or the special items, they're just not that exciting to land at. Doesn't mean that there aren't a good chunk of people that like landing there. Doesn't mean that it might not be your favorite landing spot, but I just don't feel like aesthetically they fit within Fortnite, or they just feel fun to land at over time. When I think back to Chapter 4, it wasn't necessarily like that. Like, yeah, I did get tired of Mega, but it was still a really good place to fight and land at from time to time, and you always knew that you would get good loot when you landed there. I can't say that for some of the POIs that we've gotten this chapter. Now, as important as the map design is in bringing in that old Fortnite feeling, the old Fortnite aesthetic back, I think the number one most important thing that needs to be brought back in Chapter 6 is weapons at different rarities. This to me has been the biggest mistake of modern Fortnite. I have said it once, and I will say it again. Finding every weapon at every single rarity is a mistake. And on top of that, what Fortnite Chapter 5 did that no other chapter has ever done is make every single gun look exactly the same. Oh yeah, of course, after a while, we all adapted to it and got used to it. I now know the difference between the different ARs and SMGs, but at the first chunk of the season, or the first chunk of the chapter, all the guns looked exactly the same. Now, let's throw that complaint to the side. I think next chapter, we just need to have different weapon, not even weapon classes, but just different guns that are available only at a specific rarity. The Scar should only be available at purple and gold if you bring it back. Same thing with certain types of AKs. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't have one weapon class that expands all 5 rarities. However, if you do that, there needs to be a visual and a mechanical difference, even an audio difference between the weapons at blue and purple. That split right there needs to have a transformation between them. It needs to feel like I'm being rewarded with a completely different gun. I hope Epic was paying attention, because that's one of the biggest complaints that I and a lot of other content creators had. Like, picking up weapons felt special again. It doesn't feel special when I pick up anything in this game anymore. Even Chapter 4 did this pretty decent by having the exotic, but even then, there wasn't enough of a difference in the loot pool to really make it feel truly immersive. Call me a boomer, but I just feel like the way OG Fortnite did it was the best. There is a difference between the gray, green, and blue pump compared to the gold and purple pump. Gold and purple definitely feel better than carrying a blue or a green. I cannot say that with the new striker pump. It all just feels exactly the same to me. And hey, like I was talking about earlier with that mod system, maybe you can make it to where you can transform a striker pump into a gold or purple spaz if you've got the right attachments. Please, actually, time out, for the love of God. Don't bring the striker pump back. Keep that out of the game. Burn it. Delete it from creative. We never want to see it again. It's a terrible, just don't keep that gun in. Just get rid of it. I'm tired of that shotgun. Worst shotgun meta in Fortnite history exists in Chapter 5. Anyway, to get back on track here, I want you to think about how it felt when you were playing OG, and you might not have even liked that season. However, think about how it felt to pick up weapons. I think one thing that most of us, if not all of us, can agree on is that it was just objectively more rewarding to find different weapons in the wild. I like that certain pistols can only go up to like a blue rarity, and then the really nice pistols, like the suppressed ones, were gold or purple. Ironically, this is kind of the point that I bring up when I talk about Battle Pass exclusivity, but exclusivity has value. When you have things that are only obtainable to a limited amount of people or within a certain weapon class or a rarity class, that just makes it more fun to use. Having every weapon and every rarity just cheapens it. The loot pool is so cheap right now, it does not feel good. So if they do that with weapons, and if they want to keep weapon attachments, but like I said, throw them in the wild, make them ground loot or chest loot or whatever, but also give the attachments rarities associated with them, I think you're looking at one of the best Fortnite metas that's ever existed. And I think that should remain a staple of your game. You have the resources, you have the tools, you've got all these different weapons that are in the game. Just make some of them exclusive to a specific rarity. Guys, I'm telling you, if Epic adds these 5 things into Chapter 6, we are probably looking at one of the best eras of Fortnite ever. I think that this would solve a lot of the problems that people currently have with modern Fortnite. Now, I think there's a lot of other things that could be added in. There are a lot of things I didn't mention. Like, I did have some honorable mentions I didn't get around to. I think adding 3D lobbies back would be a cool thing. I think the Battle Pass needs a huge revamp. I just am kind of tired of the way it works right now. It's not fun to go through like it used to be. I like the way that it worked back in Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 more. And if I don't mention this, Loot Station will freak out. Also having 3D loading screens or 3D sections for Battle Pass as well, like we did in Chapter 2 Season 2 and Chapter 2 Season 3. I think that would be a good thing to bring back. I think Epic also needs to stick to season themes a lot harder. I've mentioned this on stream before, but bringing in Pirates of the Caribbean in the middle of a car theme season was kind of odd. Now, I know that that comes down to licensing and timing and when you're able to get certain IPs in the game. If they have to bring a certain collab in when they have to, it's fine, whatever. Like, I can suck it up, but I just feel like the theming should try to be on brand or just try to be a bit more consistent with whatever you've got going on for that specific season. It's just, I don't know. Sometimes it feels a little all over the place, but I like the collabs. I'm not saying I don't want the collabs. I just want the collabs to fit the season's theme a little bit better if possible. Then last honorable mention, I think supply drops would be a cool thing to come back. I know we have them in the game now, like you can buy them, but I think randomly spawning supply drops, like how they work in Reload right now, bring that into BR, or bring that back to BR, I should say. I think that would be fun to have again. And then those special weapon attachments, I was talking about that, like maybe having the exotic ones, put those in the supply drops. Make that something worth fighting for again. But anyway, I want to know what you guys think. Leave a comment down below. Let me know how you're feeling about Fortnite OG, Fortnite Chapter 6. What are you most excited for? How is Fortnitemares right now? I'm coming from the past. You're in the future. You tell me how you're enjoying it. I'm sure I've live streamed it by now. Might even do a little Fortnitemares video with Loot Station next week. We'll see what happens with that. I don't know if we recorded that on Friday or not. We'll see. Anyway, guys, I love y'all. Check out the video on screen. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.